So, football, speed. I'll open with why copying a college and NFL program is not good for high school coaches. Most of those places don't sprint. The NFL actually inhibits you from sprinting. They have laws to prevent you from sprinting when you train. You have to have an athletic trainer present when you do any sprint workout in the preseason or off-season. It's weird, isn't it? So I used to do things for the Jaguars. We would go, I said that last night, we would go across the street. People would go film people in weird places and send me film because they couldn't do it. In colleges, they recruit. I mean, that's why there's a combine. We're going to pick the fastest guys because we don't know how to build it or we're not allowed to build it. It's difficult to build. We don't know how. I talk to a lot of people that call me and ask me questions that are, you know, they have the fancy polos and things like that, and their knowledge of sprinting is really not very good. They're trying to learn. At least they're calling and asking and want to learn. Even in high school, you know, they don't show up and say, give me the 4.6 kid that loves to play and we'll make him into a 4.4. You never hear a college coach say that. College coach's first thing is, oh, we got to put some weight on them. We got to make them bigger. They'll look good with 25 pounds on. Yeah, they're going to be slow too. And a lot of times in both those programs is someone way above them sets the standards. You may have a head coach or a science guy who believes certain things, and your job is to do what they ask. Very rarely do you have the freedom to explore and do interesting things and experiment with athletes, because if that doesn't go well, it's your job. Someone's going to ask, why were you doing this? You say, well, I thought I wanted to try this. No, you're done. Again, that's why Cal gets away with what he does, is because he has the freedom to do whatever he wants. He has gotten offers from lots of nice places, and people have put a lot of money on the table for him to go, but he said, then I can't experiment and play, and really I do this job because I like to experiment and see what works and what doesn't work. I can't go to the Patriots and do that. They'll fire me right away. Then I'm out of a job. And I think we all know this. They always blame the strength coach first. We're not in shape. You need to run them more. They're not working hard enough. I don't see people puking. There's no screaming going on. How come you're not on them about working hard? You know, all the stuff that you've heard and all that. And a lot of strength coaches see their lenses through their past, which is not a lot of sprint work, and the weight room. Strength coaches love to lift weights. And they believe that lifting weights makes all things better, which there's an element of truth to that for some people. I also have some of the fastest guys I've ever had can't lift much at all. Carl Lewis. You know, they always have the picture of Usain Bolt lifting weights. He didn't lift weights because he had scoliosis, really bad scoliosis. If they put a bar on his back, it might have killed him because it curved into his lung. Again, if I'm going to be a smart ass and someone's annoying me, I'll say, all right, why don't you break down the film for me and tell me what you see? Well, I don't do that very often. And they never measure it. How do you know you're getting faster? You don't. That's why what Kyle does, he measures it. You actually see if it's working. I measure all the time. And I admit, stuff doesn't work for me all the time, half the time. But I want to know so I can get rid of it and change. So what makes you fast? Some of this I've talked about already. This is science, except for this one. Well, that's science too. It's going to be where you're putting your force, how fast you can slam that leg down into the ground, where your foot takes you. I'm going to disagree strongly with Kyle from last night where he does a lot of arm drills. Your arms are there as a counterbalance to what your foot doesn't do. So you're going to use your limbs to get you to your target. And if this foot comes off funny, you have to find a way to get this momentum that's actually pushing you that way, or your foot's turned in. So you'll swing an arm, you'll do something with the arm, so at the end of that toe off, where you're in the air, that your mass is moving forward. Don't believe me? Sit behind a 1080 and make it heavy, and watch how people try to find a way to go forward with a lot of weight. Don't believe me? Blindfold a kid and have them run and see what their feet actually do and see where their feet take them when you take away their target. I've done that. I do it to my son. I used to pay him. $20 for stupid shit is what we would call it. Cole, we're going to go out to the football field. We're going to videotape you running, but I'm going to blindfold you. Here's what your feet look like. Here's what you do when you run and you've got a target. All right, now I'm going to blindfold you and let's see where you actually go and see where your feet take you. And sure enough, he drifts one way or the other because I've taken away his target. We do drone stuff. We did all kinds of fun stuff because he wanted the money to buy all of his drone stuff. So, all right, you do stupid stuff where you might get hurt, I'll pay you. All right, Dad, we're good. Let's go do it. 0 step, that is your force naught, your F naught, which is how fast can I move my weight forward before my first foot hits the ground. That's 30% difference between someone who is a 9.7 and a 10.4. Maybe more between a 10.4 and 11 flat. And if you're stuck on distance and time, supposedly you hit 50% of your max velocity by your 3rd step. So if you bring up that first 3 steps, that speed at your first 3 steps, you're just going to follow the force of the curve and hopefully end up faster. So that's the science. I talked about that last night. That is what they are looking at these days and how we can change these things. I've talked about this in other presentations, but this is your 0 step. How fast can you project your body out? Anyone know the distance of where your hip is when your first foot hits the ground if you're going to run fast? You should be between 3 and 4 feet in front of the line when your first foot hits the ground. That doesn't mean reach far out in front. It's where your hips are when you're in place. So if you step really far out in front, your hips actually haven't displaced at all. So it's, can I move my ass forward as far as possible, as quickly as possible? Your job is to help them line up where that is going to actually be. You know, do I need to have my butt lower or higher or where my feet are? But that is 0 step projection. And that was the factor that was the biggest between all sub-elite to elite sprinters in this incredible study, which I still think is one of the best pieces of research on sprinting that has come out in a long time. Of course, J.B. Morin is at the very bottom. The more I can press this way, the faster I'm going to go. I do have a good video of Chris Brown. Maybe I'll get time to show you. And again, here's the research. Again, they looked at everything. You know, you go to that magic lab on that island in Japan and you can get all kinds of data. That's where Ryo Nagaharu's lab is. You know, the 70-meter track where there's force plates all 70 meters and cameras, high-speed cameras every 3 meters, and they can stick things in you. That's where he does all of his work. I almost got to go there, but COVID came and wrecked my whole trip. Damned COVID. So watch this guy's shin angle. He was a combine 4.4 guy. Legit. So he's pushing straight ahead, isn't he? Then I think the most important thing that you do is you create space that you can actually put that foot down with some velocity. So remember we talked about bent over. See how if you look at the angle between his right thigh, the away thigh, the one that's up in the air, and where his torso is, that's less than 90 degrees. His psoas is doing the work lifting that leg. He's going to get a better wind up so he can put that foot down into the ground faster and create a bigger moment. So he hits, he'll roll over, use his ankle rocker and his forefoot rocker to drop that shin down, which again is quadratus, or not QL, it's your your vastus lateralis that's going to push you forward. And so as he goes, his shin continues to drop and he is pushing forward. We saw this guy last night. We'll play this real quick, where he is the opposite of his friend, where when he goes, he pushes straight up and down. He looks better. Everything looks perfect. He gets himself in a good position there, but he completely mashes out his foot, and now his shin will go vertical almost. So he is pushing up.
So Chris, would you start with spring ankle? I mean, essentially?
With him, absolutely. And when he pulls heavy sleds, I'm not going to let him move that foot at all down. You've got to learn to push. You know, we'll do isometrics and he'll be blocked. His forefoot will be blocked up. You know, the really good research coming out of Ireland talks about the fact that we've completely eliminated the big toe joint from all the research that we have done about what pushes. And then all of a sudden you start quantifying that and putting that into the research. They found out that, wait a minute, this really is important. What does it look like in football? It's A.J. Green. He can play, right? I think he's done now, though. Yeah. Watch him come off the line. He drops everything. So he takes a false step, so he can drop that back leg down, so his rear foot, which is responsible for maybe as much as 60% of your force coming out of the hole, so all of his force is going forward, which allows him to drop over the forefoot of his left leg and drop that shin down. So by his third step, he's at 5 yards already. So he may not be a great 40-meter dash guy, because I don't think he was. I think he was a 4.6 at the combine. But it's really how fast he eats up that cushion right at the snap of the ball. He is. He's about 6'3", 6'4". He's a big dude. So is Allen Robinson. Big dude. Not a great 40-yard dash guy, but he knows how to create horizontal force quickly. Which I think if you're looking at film and you can identify that in a wide receiver and blow off your combine 4.4, you can find some pretty good players. Here's Dave Montgomery training in my driveway.
Iowa State, David Montgomery?
Yeah, Chicago Bear. Bears. Come on, we suck, but it's the Bears.
I'm a college football fan.
Yeah, Iowa State, David Montgomery.
He's a dude.
Yeah, he'll hurt you.
Yeah.
Nicest guy in the world. So, again, acceleration. We saw that last night. How do you improve it? Sled runs work pretty well.
Okay, you actually pull this way.
He's pulling the sled. I pull a 1080, but I have a run rocket that I use as much as I use my 1080. I love my run rocket. I can do different things with it. But I think what's really important that whenever you are pulling a sled, that you have to look at foot action and the shin action and spine action. You'll see a lot of people bend at the spine and knock knees. Again, if you had a line that they could run down, your feet will never cross that line, because the first thing people do is when they pull on something heavy is they cross mid-stance. You've automatically made yourself a worse sprinter just because of where their foot placement goes. Because the counter is going to be to cross, and the counter is going to be to cross. Because remember, part of gait assessment is a reaction to everything that's happened, and you create this spiral of bad things that may happen. I was doing work with England Rugby, and we were watching sled runs, and that was a big problem they had, is they couldn't stabilize under pressure, which those front line, I don't even know the names of that front position, when they're pushing each other, that was it. So if you want to see good research on it, Mihal Cahill, a good friend of mine, did some phenomenal research down in Dallas, Texas, about 3-week blocks and how he weighted down. You know, first 2 or 3 weeks was heavy, second 2 or 3 weeks was medium, last 2 or 3 weeks was light, and then to a sprint. I'm currently doing that with my track team right now. We're gradually working our way to something lighter. We've only done one fly 10 days so far, and we're in week 4. Because I have all outdoor season to do flies. But my data showed that we weren't great coming out of the blocks, and we were velocity heavy, power low. So we kind of shifted to that. And he had some pretty good changes with it, as did I with the heavy stuff. We really improved our rate of force.
Chris,
Yeah.
what are you using to make that determination? Your 1080 data? Or
My 1080 data. So 1080 just came out with a really cool thing that goes into their app where you run a 30 and it gives you all the data and gives you force velocity curves. And then you say, well, our force is really poor. I mean, are they losing top end speed right now? They are a little bit, but I know I can get that back. I'm pretty good at max velocity.
if you didn't have a 1080, what's your go-to for?
Oh, there's JB Morin's app where you time a 30 with 10-meter segments, and it tells you what to do. Or Cal Dietz's power determiner, where you do his zigzag thing, and it even tells you now how much weight you should use on jump squats.